y'all, welcome back to the Decide It's Your Turn podcast. I've been saying that for like over 4 years now. I feel like I need to change the beginning, but here we go. Welcome back to the podcast. Today is going to be one, it's very different than I've probably done in a while. I feel like everything has been very like high level strategy as of late, but I feel like this week and last week with my client sessions, there has just been so much personal stuff. If you've probably heard me say on the podcast before that I personally feel at this stage of my life that personal stuff is actually harder than the work stuff. I feel like we get them confused very often, especially with like a lot of my clients who are already very much high achievers who have got a lot of going on in their business. I think most people think it's the business, but I think what the real thing is, the thing under the thing, as I've been saying on this podcast for a while now, is the personal stuff. It just feels so much harder. So today I wrote down some things that clients have been dealing with, and obviously like confidentiality is the number one thing with my clients, but I wrote down a couple of things, and I literally did this so I wasn't going to screw up people's names because, you know, I want to say their names because I'm just so used to it, but I wrote down different names. Like currently I'm using an example named Sarah. I, at the time, do not have a client named Sarah, so I wanted to write those things down because I was like, okay, Sarah, I might call them all Sarah. Sarah number one, Sarah number two, but I've got a couple guy clients as well, and so I don't even know what I did. I think I used the name Ryan because I don't have a guy client named Ryan right now, and Ryan's my brother's name, so I guess maybe that was weird that I picked that. But we're going to use Sarah as an example for the very first thing because yeah, and honestly, it's not even just client stories. They're personal stories too, if I'm 100% honest with you. I have said, like, even in my life, business doesn't seem as hard as sometimes like the personal things have been hard. And I think you guys like when I share some personal stuff, or at least I think you do, is what I've been told. But this past week, I really fucked up personally. I had a really hard personal week because I just did something and I took personal responsibility for it. Like I always say on this podcast, it's your job to take personal responsibility for your life if you want to change it. And I kind of screwed something up, and I think that I learned a couple of good lessons that I needed to learn. And I learned this from a therapist a long time ago. She said, you know those crazy people, like crazy keto people or crazy like CrossFit people? She actually said CrossFit. This was probably about 3 years ago when I was going to my therapist like pretty regularly. And she said, Christina, do you know those people who are like the crazy CrossFitters who will tell you up and down why CrossFit is going to change your life, why it's the best thing on planet Earth? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I know them. Like the annoying people who are trying to prove to you why CrossFit is the best thing ever. She goes, you're the annoying CrossFitter when it comes to mindset work. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. So if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you might be like me, the crazy CrossFitter of mindset work, but not everyone is like us. And I have worked so diligently over the last 15 years to understand that the truth is always in the middle. My husband has been, unbelievably helpful in my life of, helping me learn that nothing is black or white. The truth is in the middle. Such an amazing lesson. And honestly, I think I reflect that to my clients all the time. We always try to make the pendulum from, if your parents did something, chances are you want to do the exact opposite. Well, that's never right. The truth is in the middle. And just like in life, the truth is in the middle. The pendulum, the middle is the balance. It's the yin to the yang. It's like the best thing. And I think sometimes I get a little too aggressive when I say, you get to decide. It's your life. You have a decision. Everything's a decision. Because I am so passionate about it. I am the crazy CrossFitter when it comes to this work. But I basically put my foot in my mouth this past week and I really fucked up. I had a strong opinion about something. I said some things that I didn't want someone to hear. I took full responsibility for it. I felt like a big piece of shit. I still feel like a piece of shit about it. But, I don't regret what I said. I just regret that the way that I said it. I can be very much aggressive. Obviously, if you've listened to this podcast, you know that. And it's weird because with my clients, my job is to never give my opinion. So I can do it so well there. But when I'm giving my opinion, I believe in my opinion very, very strongly. And my husband has a tendency to tell me you know what, Christina, we're just not going to agree on this situation. We can still love each other and respect each other. We're just not going to agree. And this situation situation that came up for me is, I had a very strong opinion about something. It came off very mean because I cared so deeply. And the thing about it is like, I was doing it out of love. However, it did not come across loving, and it did come across like I was being a huge bitch who had a strong opinion, who couldn't understand another person's point of view. And so that's my behind the scenes of, how personal life sometimes is much harder than the business life. But I think what happens is that our personal life bleeds into our professional life a lot. And today I wanted to kind of, like I said, I wrote down some examples. I wanted to kind of talk about how certain clients of mine over the years, and some of these have actually been past stories, but there's been a couple of scenes or a couple of situations with clients where they've had a lot of things kind of going on in their personal lives and how it's bled into their businesses. And I think a lot of times, with the blessing and curse of social media, I think we oftentimes think that everyone has it all together, especially people that I work with who look like they have a really perfect life. And sometimes people want to present that they have a perfect life. I never want to present like I have a perfect life. I actually think that like the pressure of that is fucking brutal. I always say I have the greatest life ever, but you can still have the greatest life and also not have a perfect life. My life is far from fucking perfect. I am messy as hell. Clearly, I put my foot in my mouth. I cry, often. I am stressed out, overwhelmed, probably less often than most people, but I still have these situations come up. I still have bad days. I still have problems. I still have stresses. I'm a human being doing a human thing. And I just think that sometimes, online, people just think that I have a perfect life or someone else has a perfect life, and especially a lot of my clients, because they are very successful people who, are very good at what they do. I think that just oftentimes people think that everyone's life is perfect on the inside because that's all you're seeing. You're seeing the highlights on social media. You're seeing the highlights when you go to the pool in the summer and you catch up with someone. How are you? Great. How are you? How are the kids? Amazing. Everyone looks good. Everyone looks great. But there's still shit behind the scenes. And I think that, honestly, that's what I like to talk about with my clients probably the most, because I feel like those are the type of situations that I can really help with, because me being almost like an insider into their life, the safe space for their life that perhaps they don't want to share with everyone. It's one of my greatest privileges to be able to be that person for a lot of my clients. So yes, today is more so the personal stuff, the mindset stuff, than the strategy stuff with clients. But let's go to quote unquote Sarah, because I don't even know if I've ever had a client named Sarah over the years. So we're going to go with that. But Sarah was a client of mine who ran a very, very successful business, like multi-six figures for sure. She worked out 6 days a week. She had 3 kids. She had a great marriage. She was very, very successful. On the calendar, there wasn't an ounce of free space. Her Instagram looked perfect. The truth was she was actually making herself really sick with her schedule and with her calendar. She was completely overwhelmed. She never felt like she could take 1 second of a break, and if she did, she felt like the house of cards would fall. Like, I remember her literally saying to me, like, if I take this one thing off, everything will fall. Like, the house of cards will fall. And I really feel like the thing that she came to me for was almost the permission. Like, we had to implement a few things in order to get her life back. But I really feel like down deep, the thing she was coming to me for was almost the permission to slow down, because she truly felt like, I remember her saying, the house of cards will fall. And I remember her saying that, and I was just thinking, like, she is literally petrified that the house of cards will fall. Like, her life will fall. The business will fall, her kids will fall, her marriage will fall, her friendship will fall, what people thought of her would fall. And just because we care about what people think about us doesn't mean that we're bad. I know a lot of people who care really deeply about what other people think of them. And I'm not necessarily saying that I think it's like a fantastic quality. I think it's a quality in which it's difficult. I think there's a lot of pressure to that. I really try not to care about what people think, but yes, of course, it bothers me. I just don't think it stops me. My I don't know if you guys have been watching this show on Amazon. My mom recommended, yeah, I think it was on Amazon. No, maybe Netflix. Netflix. Okay, so my dad, this is total side tangent. You guys know me. I'm coming back to the story, I promise, but this is a side tangent. It's actually pretty good. So my mom told us about a show on Netflix called The Waterfront, and it was very gruesome. I am not a cover my eyes type of girl when I know something bad's gonna happen. You guys, if you've listened to this podcast, you know I'm truly a puss at heart. Like, I really am. I am a lightweight, I'm a puss, I like to go to bed. I'm probably 75 at heart. But all of that to be said, I remember in the show, like they killed some guys or whatever, and the son turned to the dad and said, "How does this not bother you?" And he said, "It doesn't not bother me, it just doesn't stop me." And I think that that's exactly the way I feel about what everyone else thinks of me. Yes, it bothers me, it just doesn't stop me. I have people close to me, like within immediate type of family. I don't know what exactly immediate means, but people that are like, have the same blood as me, that don't like what I do, that don't like what I say. And I will say to you, it doesn't not bother me, it just doesn't stop me. And I think that this client, Sarah, quote unquote Sarah, who I was working with, I will tell you that that was the one thing that we really worked on, was she had to almost have faith that the cards weren't gonna fall and that they were almost gonna be stronger if she started taking care of herself. She really just needed the permission to relax some. And the one thing that we helped her see together was that her productivity was not like her gold star. And it was almost as if there was an empty hour in her life, she almost felt guilty for it. And I don't know if any of you women in particular out there who are listening to this who could feel the very same way, but we really had to help her rewire the fact that her achievement was not associated with who she was and her worth in her life. And I think ultimately, if you think about everything that I'm going to talk about today, it all kind of ultimately boils down to your worth, like how you feel about yourself. Like when you'll listen to all of the examples, I'm going to give about 4 clients today, but I promise you, it was really about her just feeling like she was okay and worthy without pushing herself to the absolute max. And I know that there's people out there listening to this who totally understand. Perhaps you have kids, perhaps you have a job. Maybe you don't own the business, but perhaps you have a high-powered job, you've got kids, you've got a family, you look a certain way, you have to show up to certain things, you have to go to the gym, like you pride yourself on never relaxing and always doing because you're trying to prove something. And most of the things that I'm going to talk about today are what I call the stories, the patterns, and the habits that you've had in your life that you are the reason you are the way you are. And every person is why they are the way they are. Chances are from your parents. Doesn't mean your parents are bad. It's just there were certain things that happened in your life that programmed you a certain way. And now those programmings, as much as they have been very helpful in your life, they have now started to hurt you. And I know for a fact, me personally, there were so many programmings that I had in my life that helped me to a certain point. But at some point in time, those programmings and those thoughts were not only detrimental to my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, but they just weren't serving me anymore. And I had to figure out what those things were and reprogram them in order to get a different result. And really, this client, Sarah, what we were trying to do was we were trying to help her almost relax and reprogram that she didn't have to be literally every moment of her day did not have to be full in order for her to be, quote, worthy or okay or productive or whatever she felt. She literally felt like if every moment of the day was not taken, she was bad. She wasn't performing at her highest level. You know that saying that have you done all you can do? You guys, some people take that to the absolute extremes that if every 15 minutes of your life isn't full, then you're obviously not doing enough. And I know that there's people who would probably say, well, then if you're going to be great, my God, there's a book on my table, how to be great. But at the same time too, you got to know what you actually want. Are you trying to be Michael Jordan? Then maybe every minute of your day has to be like that in order to be the best in the world. But you also have to understand that there's pluses and minuses for everything. And this this woman really came to me because she no longer wanted to feel like she had to have every second of her day taken up, and realized that like her world wouldn't fall. And so really what we started to do is we started to get really clear on what she was prioritizing and what she was just putting in there, because she didn't know how to like say no to certain things, because she didn't know how to tell people that she couldn't do something. She couldn't ask for help. She needed to get clear of what she actually wanted. And this is the reason why I do clarity calls. So you can book one of these, they're $99, walk away from this call getting you 100% clarity on like the mindset or the strategy that you need in order to move forward, to get clear on what it is that you actually want. And then if you and I decide to work together, I reimburse you that $99. I'm doing a $99 call now just to make sure that you are actually coming to this call ready to take action to make a difference. I always say when you pay attention. And for a while, for probably, 7 or 8 years, I did free clarity calls. But I'll tell you, if I've had a few people over the years who really weren't coming to that call knowing that they wanted to take different actions. If you're not willing to spend $99 to actually make a different decision to get clarity, well then clearly you don't want to get clarity. And so that's the reason why I'm starting to charge for those calls. And I'll tell you, the few people, we've only implemented this for like 3 weeks, the people who have booked those calls are actually people who want to take a different action, who are ready to decide it's their turn to do something different. And so I'm very excited that I did change that. So if you want to book one of those, you can go to my website, Be Christina. You can see the show notes. All of the information is there. But once this client got clear on what she actually wanted, she started taking Fridays off, like literally Fridays off. And trust me, the reprogramming it takes and the nervous system regulation to feel okay with taking a Friday off. I know you might be laughing at that, but I promise you that's a fucking hard thing to do. If you're a person who has never taken 15 minutes out of your life and now you're a person who has a whole day off, we have to like learn to reprogram your body's nervous system in order for you to be okay with that. I know that sounds crazy, but trust me, if you get it, you get it. So also too, she really changed her relationship with her husband. She asked for help at work. She made some really good strategic decisions at work and like making some hiring that she was afraid to hire before because she felt like she had to do it all. And I will tell you, like that woman truly transformed. We worked together for about 2 years and I'm unbelievably proud of her. I still stay in touch with her. She seems to be doing really, really well. So I will say that that is something that a lot of clients have felt over the years. And I'm excited to get to work with those people because honest to God, like what's the point of working so hard and creating the life that you so desire if you're actually not enjoying it and it's constantly feeling like you can't breathe? All right, taking a glass of water. All right, my next client, we're going to go with Sarah number 2, okay? Sarah number 2. So Sarah number 2, she was actually someone who came to me who wanted to become a coach herself. A little bit different than what I did, but she did come to me with an expertise. She was in corporate beforehand. She really loved what she was doing. She was extremely passionate about it. She was definitely ready to move forward. She really felt like, you know, this is something that she really wanted to do. The thing about it is that she, every single time she went to, but this was before she hired me, but every single time she went to go do something, she always felt like she had to get a new certification. She always felt like she had to get a new diploma, like she had to learn something else. So she'd take the next course, she'd take the next class. And this was about 4 years ago. And I remember when she came to me, she said, you know, I have taken every course, every class, I've hired numerous coaches before you. And, you know, that always makes me a bit hesitant too, because I'm always kind of wondering why, what is the thing that these people are looking for? And I think oftentimes and I told her straight up, I said, you know what? There isn't a secret. There isn't something that I'm going to magically be able to give you. I feel like, you know, if you and I align, I feel like it's going to be a great fit. And I definitely believe that I can help you. But at the end of the day, you have to be bought in what you're doing. And you have to realize that at some point in time, you can't learn anymore. You just have to take action. So perhaps if you're someone who's listening to this and you're constantly thinking you need one more thing, or you need one more course, or one more class, or one more coach, or, you know, one more certification, or one more degree. God, you see that all the time too. People going back to school for like their 4th degree. It's like, guess what? At some point in time, you have to take action. At some point in time, there is going to be nothing else that you can possibly fucking learn or prepare for. You just have to do it. And I think that that's really what I really helped her with. This woman, and to be very transparent, we're going to call her Sarah number 2. She ended up going back into a different field. She didn't coach for a very long time. She found it hard to get clients. She found it hard to continue. And I'll be honest with you, I always want to be very transparent. I will say probably 25% of my clients who have come to me in hopes of making a career change actually make the career change. 75% of people usually come to me, figure out that perhaps what they wanted to do was not actually what they ended up deciding to do. I do not look at that as a failure. I look at that as people at least trying, going out there, getting more information, but then going back to do something different that they're aligned to. I would never hope that anyone who's worked with me, who comes to me, who sets out for a different path, goes back to the exact same thing that they were doing and being miserable. I hope that the work that we do together gets them clarity, allows them to take action, moves them forward, and then they find the next thing that's aligned. I would never say that it is not worth it. I would not say that it's like a failure or success. Some people just have finally gotten the information that they need and they just decide to take a different path. In no form or fashion do I feel like that's a failure. I actually feel like that's super brave of them to at least try to do something different, because most people will never know unless they try. And oftentimes people get the information that they need and figure out that it's not what they wanted. I have a client, we'll call her Sarah number 3, I still work with 5 years later. She has she left one career, went to a different career, she started her own thing, she's back at another corporate thing. She's learned so much about herself, but she also learned that she doesn't want to work for herself. Most people actually don't want to work for themselves. A lot of people love the structure, love the stability, love not having to do all the extra shit. Learning how to be either an entrepreneur or a business owner, it is not for the faint of heart, let me tell you. And I think that oftentimes people, sometimes you just got to try unless you know, right? Like you just have to try. And not everyone is in a situation where that makes sense for them financially. I had a long time, I worked with a woman who was a single mom who really went on her own, did well, was making good money, but actually ended up going back and taking more of a corporate career and really is thriving now. So I really do want to put that out there. I never want to be the person who says everyone comes and makes millions of dollars and everyone survives the entrepreneurial journey, because it's just not fucking true. But I will say I believe to my soul that every single person gets what they need out of the coaching experience. But I will say with this client, the one that I was referring to, that kept buying the next course and the next class and the next coach and was always looking for that magic bullet, the one thing that client really needed was to just start taking action, to get over the imposter syndrome, to get over thinking that comparing her stage in the journey to everyone else's, that she should be further along, that everyone else was doing it right. One of the things I remember we had a really hard conversation one time where I was like, why the fuck did you change the plan? We had a very clear strategy that she was on board with, that she wanted to do, and she completely changed it. And I asked her on a hard conversation on a call, because that's my job as a coach, right? I love a lot of my clients. I stay friends with my clients. Some of them are good friends still to this day. But I will tell you, my job is not be your friend. My job is to be your coach. And my job is to hold you accountable and call you out on your patterns. Being able to see in my clients their patterns is unbelievably helpful. And that's why I do believe in a long-term coaching relationship where I know my clients inside and out. I know their patterns. I know their habits. I know their stories. And with this client, I knew when she changed, I knew it was because she looked at someone else and thought, oh, that's the fastest way to do it, or that's the best way to do it, when it really wasn't aligned to her and her vision and what she actually wanted. So to call her out on that, right? And being able to put her back in place to say no, this is what you committed to. And I think that there's a huge value in a person playing the long game. I've been a very big proponent of this my whole entire life, way before I even got into coaching. The long game matters. Doing something consistently over time. Doesn't mean that you don't pivot, but you have to be able to do something consistently to see if it actually freaking works. So I think with this client in particular, it was really helpful for me to be able to see her patterns, to be able to help point out that like her imposter syndrome was just bullshit. She just had to actually do the thing. And I promise you, when she actually started doing it, she started building that confidence. Taking that action built the momentum. And even though today, as far as I know, she's not a coach anymore, I will say at least she knew how to take action. And hopefully that momentum for her has actually moved forward. So if you're a person who's listening to this who always is like, thinking you have to learn the next thing or hire the next thing or finish the next thing or get the next certification or degree or whatever it is, perhaps that is calling you out in the fact that like you can't fucking prepare. Sometimes you just got to take action because you don't know what next step is going to happen until you actually take the first step. So I think that was, really, really helpful, and hopefully that's helpful for you too. All right, my next Sarah, we'll call her Sarah number 3. This was a woman who really, she just had a regular 9-to-5 job. She came to me really because she felt lost. And over the years, I will tell you, probably in the past, probably 5 or 6 years, I have had a lot of women come to me, their moms in their next stage of life. Let's say that she had, a solid job, a wonderful husband. She had 3 kids who were all like, doing really well in school. They were about to graduate. One of the things for her was she just felt guilty all the time that she wanted something more. And I will tell you, I have seen that so many times over the years. It was like she has a great life. She's financially taken care of. Her kids are good. Her and her husband are good. It was this overwhelming guilt of feeling as if she was ungrateful for the life that she had because she wanted more. And I will say that is I probably don't even realize what a issue that is. So if you are someone who is listening to this and this resonates with you, I'd love a message from you. 501-222-3362. Tell me if this resonates. You can find me on Instagram at @bchristina. But she was constantly feeling guilty for wanting more. And one of the things that really we did together was make her see that she was allowed. That she was allowed to want more. And not only was she allowed, I truly do believe she had 2 girls, and I truly do believe it was giving her the permission to put herself first and to allow herself to do the thing that she wanted to do in her life, to give her girls permission. Oftentimes, I reflect to my clients either in their kids or in their little kid self. So I have a couple clients who don't, like myself, don't have kids, and I reflect like to the little kid version of themselves. But it's easy when I'm speaking to moms and I say, would you want your girls to believe that it was selfish to want more when they had a beautiful life? I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I absolutely, from the bottom of my soul, do not believe that a person should feel guilty at all. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how good your life is. One of my favorite quotes from one of my clients, and I may have mentioned it on the podcast, or maybe I even did an Instagram post about it, but one of my former clients, I don't know if I should use her name or not, but she was awesome and lovely, and I worked with her for a little while. She and I still connect here and there, but she had a wonderful quote, which was like, "Thank you, God, what's next?" And I think that is such a great quote in the fact that you're so grateful for what is, but you're so excited for what's coming and what's next. And I think with this client, it was almost just allowing her to reconnect with herself, to not feel bad that she wants more out of her life. And her wanting more was just that desire in herself to really feel like she had more of a purpose, I think. She felt so grateful that she was taken care of financially by her husband. She felt so grateful that she had 3 kids that were doing well and, like good kids, like doing well, like she just felt guilty for wanting more. And I just know that so many women feel this way. And I don't think that you should feel guilty at all. It is so okay to want more. And it's not that she wanted more to like go buy more handbags. She just wanted that deep knowing inside of herself. She just wanted to feel that passion of what else she could do in this world. And I think for her, it was just reconnecting to like simple questions, like things that I would ask her on our call is like, if you didn't feel guilty about anything, what would you do with your day? If you didn't feel like the pressure to, say that, your life is great and that you don't need anything else, what would you do with yourself? Like what do you care about? I remember a long time ago, because people are always used to ask me, well, how do I find, you're so purposeful. Like, I care so deeply about the work that I do. Obviously, I started this podcast like that. People always used to say, well, you're so passionate what you do. Like, how did you find this? How do you find your purpose? How do you find your purpose? And I always say is like, what could you talk about forever? Clearly, I can talk about this shit all day long. I don't even know how after 4 years I'm still talking about this shit, but I can talk about it all day, every day until my head starts to spin. But what are you passionate about? What could you talk about all day? And then another question to ask yourself is, what dissatisfaction do you have in the world? Like, what really bothers you? For some people, it really bothers them when people eat unhealthy. For some people, it really bothers them about political stuff. For some people, it really bothers them when, a person doesn't know how to dress or whatever it is. Like, for me, it bothers me so deeply when people are negative and when people don't see what an amazing life they have and they can't see the glasses half full. Like, that bothers me. Or when a person says that they can't do something. Like, I will find a way to yes for anything. I'm just so passionate about it. And this client, when I was talking to her, I was like, okay, like, where is the unsettling that you have in this world? What are you super, super passionate about? And I'm not going to tell you exactly what it was, but she'll know if she's listening to this podcast. I don't know if she listens to it still, but the thing that she was really passionate about, I said, and I think the thing for her was the fact that, financially she did very well. Like, her family did really well. Her husband did really well. She had a good job. And I think that was like the tie for her. It was the fact that she felt like she couldn't, pick something that would make money because she was already financially well enough. And she looked at it as if, almost like she was ungrateful for what she had. And I was like, that is the most insane thing ever. Like, and really, and I mean this kindly. I was like, girl, are you kidding? Like, how cool is it that you can help someone and make money and still be so grateful for your life and know that you have this amazing life? And it was really just allowing her to find that spark again. It was almost allowing her to have the permission to do something because she just truly cared about doing it and being so grateful that she had the opportunity to do it, right? And it is a deep reprogramming, because perhaps you're listening to this thinking, how stupid is that? Well, guess what? It's not that stupid when you actually are deeply programmed one way and you cannot see how it's okay in someone else's mind. Whatever your deep-seated programming is, I'll tell you, it's hard. And that's a lot of the work that we do. I was just on a call with a client just yesterday, and I was telling her, I said, she does body work. And she said to me, I have to untrain the muscles on these. She's a equine massage therapist, one of the best in the country. And she said, I have to do deep reprogramming work over and over and over again in order to reprogram the muscles, in order to get them to do something different. She works on these high-end horses. And I said, you know what? That's exactly what we're doing here. You are so deeply programmed one way that we have to very consistently repeat over and over and over again certain things in order to get out that reprogramming that you've had in your life if you're 40 years old for 40 years. So that is the type of work that I do with my clients to get them to be really programmed from the way they were, to get them programmed to a way that's now serving them. And this client in particular that I was talking about, this mom, that was what we had to do. We had to reprogram that it was okay for her to do this even though she had an amazing life, because she just had this immense amount of guilt for wanting more. So perhaps that one really resonated with you. Okay, so the next one is really going to resonate with so many people. And I'm laughing because I feel like I could insert my husband's name into this one, to be honest with you. It is the person who is constantly on the edge of burnout because it is so overwhelming. Again, the common theme here is that a lot of my clients come to me because they are such high achievers, because they are such people who have an immense amount of responsibility, whether it be personally and or professionally. But this client, we'll call her Sarah, she was running 2 businesses at the time. She had 2 kids at home. She had some personal things going on. She was dealing with a sick parent. She had a lot of things going on. And one of the things that was really hard was that one of her businesses was very successful, financially doing very, very well, and it was no longer aligned with the life that she wanted. And she was having a very hard time figuring out how to get out of that and pivot her life to get it more aligned. And one of the things that we did, we only worked together for, it was almost a year that we worked together. And I will tell you, one of the biggest things that we did was just strategically wise, trying to get that off her plate to make sure that she could get back into more of an aligned life. This woman was, like I said, extremely high achiever, but she almost needed that outside perspective to be able to see what she couldn't see in order to get out of the situation that she was in. And really kind of giving her the permission to say that, like, I've built this whole thing and I'm so afraid of what's going to happen if I give it away. And yet the thing about it was she was more afraid of what was going to happen if she didn't. And I think that that was really why she hired me ultimately, not only just for strategy wise to be able to process things out, but almost again for like the permission to be able to, you know, quit the thing that she knew was going to bring her down in so many ways, and almost like redefine her level of success, and also too to let go of the identity that was that one thing. And I think that that is almost something that most people don't think about. Guys, I think about this much more, but guys tie their identity so much to their job or their title or their money. And for her, it was almost like the permission to evolve into the next version of herself, because she was no longer aligned with the one thing that she did have. And it was like the fear of disappointing people, the fear of if it didn't work out, the fear of like, what if the next thing is not as successful? And for her, it just really had to, you know, we just had to realign what her priorities were, and we had to almost take her down the journey of like, okay, then what? Okay, then what? That's a tool I use with my clients quite often. And I know it seems so simple, but if you don't have a container in which you like trust the person to be able to be the overhead perspective and see the things that you can't see, then what? It's hard to do perhaps with your spouse or your best friend or an employee. Sometimes you definitely don't want to do it with employees because you don't want them to know what's happening. I mean, again, that's a whole nother podcast talking about how you have to almost keep one face different than another face around your employees. But, you know, for me in particular, I can be that safe space for her to be able to process, okay, then what? Okay, then what? Okay, then what? And we got to the end of it, and then what? It's like she would be fine. And I think that that was one of the things that she needed in that moment, to just understand that she was going to be fine. And you know what? She ended up getting out of that business. It was one of the greatest blessings. She's financially more than fine now. She is much more aligned, and she's not doing things that she friggin' hated. Like it's honestly, and I make it sound so fucking simple. It was not fucking simple. When you're in it, it wasn't simple. But it was one of the greatest gifts, and I was unbelievably stoked to be a part of that. Okay, so I also want to talk about a couple of my guys, because, you know, perhaps you're not a guy listening to this. If you are, hey, I'm so glad that you're here. Share this with your other guy friends, because I work with a ton of guys, and guys' issues are, you know, same but different in so many regards. But I will tell you, like I just said, guys associate their money a lot of times, their title a lot of times with their success. And a lot of guys have a very, very, very hard time, whether they act like it or not. There is a lot of pressure on a man. It is what it is. You can take this for how you want. If you don't like what I'm saying, it is what it is. The pressure my husband has, the pressure a lot of guys have, is something that I will never understand. I try to empathize with my clients. I try to empathize with my husband. I try to understand as best as I can. but I don't know what it's like to have hundreds of employees. I don't know what it's like to have a payroll of $1 million. I had a client who had a payroll that was well over $1 million. And that, to you, perhaps you're listening to this, that could be nothing, or perhaps that's just so much and you can't even imagine. I do not understand the pressure it is. And I will tell you, I feel like I help a lot of my clients who are that successful. I feel like I'm very good at it, but I also do not understand the pressure of that. So I want to just be very transparent about that. I just don't. But this client, we'll call him Mark. We'll call Mark's and Sarah's. I don't know why I picked Mark, but we'll call him Mark. I think I just picked Mark because that was the author of that book. So that's why we're doing that. But Mark, he had a very successful company, millions of dollars of revenue in his business. He was married, 2 kids, private school, multiple houses, Rolexes, cars, all the things. Everyone in the world thought he had it together, because outside he did, but inside was not there. And I think I've touched on him. He was one of my very first clients. This was probably about 8 or 9 years ago. I've used him as an example. We're not in touch anymore, but during the journey, it really helped me because I learned a lot about guys as well. I will say in my professional golf career, I was around a lot of guys, very, very successful men. And I will say, if I was a betting person, which I am, if you've been here for a minute, you know I love some action. I would venture to say, God, I don't even know what the percentage would be, but I would say a lot of men, a lot of men would resonate with what I'm about to say. Unbelievably successful. Everyone thinks you have it together, and inside you're a bit of a shell because you are emotionally checked out. You're always thinking about the next thing. The pressure on you to be as good as you are, to continue to grow, to have it all together, to act a certain way, look a certain way, be able to have free time, but also be able to be with your family, to be able to afford everything under the sun, to be able, the pressure is more than most people could believe. And also, if you have, and I'm not saying that a wife doesn't have a reason to say this sometimes, but I will say to you as a wife, and only speaking about myself and not any of my clients over the years, I will say if you have a wife who expects a 5-star life and you to be home at 5 o'clock and be home on the weekends and never work overtime, that is fucking stressful. And I'm not saying it's her fault. I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, but I'm just saying the amount of pressure that is, whether a guy acts like it is or not, is next fucking level. And I have seen the ins of that with a few of my clients over the years. And I promise you, it is that drives a lot of guys to do things that they're probably not proud of, to be honest with you. And it is a lot. And I will say, I truly do believe that everyone at that level should have either a coach, a therapist, a network, someone, because to hold that much pressure is a next level type of stress that can lead to not the best behavior or a really detrimental situation. Over the years, we've even had friends who have taken their lives, who have done not so great things. And so I will say, no matter who you are, please, if you are this type of person, if you are this type of guy, or if you have this type of husband, get him the support he needs, because I don't care how strong a man is, to hold that much is a lot. My husband has been very transparent. My husband has a coach. He has a group of guys in his church group. He has a group of guys for his YPO and Young Presidents Organization. He has probably 2 guys that he talks to that also have very successful lives. And my husband doesn't even have kids. Then you add on top of it a family business. Then you add on top of that, I have a client who has, hundreds of employees. This is next level type of shit. And if you think that all of these guys who are walking around with this type of level of success who have it all together, I would, again, I'm a betting person, I would venture my net worth that not everyone is doing as well as you think. So check in on these people. I hope that these people get some help, because it can be done a certain way, but dear God, you need help in order to do it. And I was honored to have gotten to work with this client that I was referring to, this guy we're going to call Mark. But I challenged him really when we were working together to, number one, let people know that he wasn't good. And he did. And I asked him to really kind of explore who he was outside of work. And that was a very, very hard task. And that's a hard thing to do for a lot of guys. Like, who are you without your title? Who are you without your bank account? Who are you without your roles? And I'm not saying that you have to know, you have to be completely separate. You don't, because what you do is a big part of you. But the minute you start putting your whole entire worth into your bank account, into your titles, that's when things become a slippery slope. And you can ask, look at every athlete who has retired and has gotten into, bad things or whatever it is. I mean, we as a society in general have a very hard time disassociating ourselves from what we do. And so I will really start, when I have a client, a guy client especially, come to me, that's usually where we start, because most of the time we have to be able to find out who they are outside of those things, and for them to be able to really learn, who are they outside of that? Because chances are, if they're that successful, they probably worked their asses off since they were 20 years old to get to that point. And it's hard to figure out, what are you passionate about? Who are you? And I will say I was very proud that this client really found himself more, started to ride a bike, like road bikes, started to, he did date nights with his wife. He spent more time with his kids, got away from the business as much as he did before, and still unbelievably successful, but has a much more rounded life now. And I think that that's, something that I'm extremely proud of. So I know that this has been a really long podcast, so I'm probably going to stop it here. I had another couple examples, but let me know if you guys like me talking about more of the actual ins and outs of the personal stuff of my clients, because I think it's really helpful, and I think that we need to talk about this a little bit more. I've always said that strategy is easy, the mindset is hard, the reprogramming is hard, money is easy, the mindset is much harder than the money a lot of times, especially for people who have already made the money, and now it's just a whole nother ball game that feels almost more difficult in some regards. But let me know if you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if it resonates with you. Let me know if I've hit exactly, am I speaking exactly to you? Gosh, I hope so, because I feel like there's a lot of people out there, and I know that, I'm honored to get to help these clients. I'm honored to get to work with them. I'm honored to get to be a small part of their journeys. It's such a blessing to me, and I love to get to do it. It's literally my purpose, my passion. It's what I love. So I appreciate you guys being here. Thanks for sharing this with someone. Share it with one of your guy friends. Let me know if this one resonates, or your high achievers. Thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you next week.